start our meeting. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for April 7th, 2015. For those that have not had the pleasure of attending such a meeting before, the way it works here is after we're done calling the roll and reviewing the minutes from the last meeting, city staff presents on an item. Once they're done presenting on an item, it's open just to the commission for technical questions. Once we're done with technical questions, we open it up for public commentary. If you have something to say, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the minutes, and tell us what you want us to know. After everybody who has desired to speak has done so, we close public commentary, come back to the commission for discussion, and then a vote. I would also ask that you silence your cell phones if you have not done so already. With that, let us call the roll.
David Borsuk.
Present.
Ed Bowen.
Here.
Jeffrey Jones.
Here.
Thomas Freitag.
Here.
John Hintz.
Here.
Steve Cummings. Kathleen Propp.
Here.
Gary Gray.
Here.
Donna Laurie. Robert Weigert. Carl Nollenberger.
All right, with that, let's move on to the approval of the minutes from March 17th. Do we have any additions, corrections, or deletions?
So moved. Second.
Been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One. All right, let's move on to item number 1. Right-of-way dedication adjacent to 4233 Waupun Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are more than...
City is requesting a right-of-way dedication of a 66-foot wide trapezoidal-shaped right-of-way dedication, approximately just over an acre in size and located adjacent to 4233 Waupun Road. Up on the screen, I have an aerial photo showing the subject site. Subject site was formerly owned by the Oshkosh Youth Baseball Incorporated, but recently purchased by Fox Valley Technical College Foundation when it was still located in the town of Nakaimai. When the state purchased the property, the state required that a certified survey map be part of the purchase agreement, and that triggered a immediate attachment requirement per the guidelines of our cooperative plan between the city of Oshkosh and town of Nakaimai. Waupun Road was never formally dedicated, so as part of the CSM approval, the city requested that the street be dedicated. Again, the subject site's up on the screen. The predominant area is mostly agricultural in use. However, to the west, we have the new Fox Valley Tech, their new Advanced Manufacturing Technology Center, and then just to the south of that is the Military Veterans Museum. We're requesting this dedication. The current designation of Waupun Road along here is it's officially designated for future right-of-way. So this will officially dedicate the land as dedicated right-of-way. This section of Waupun Road is not in the comprehensive plan's transportation section, but it is being mapped for a 66-foot right-of-way. That's consistent with the comprehensive plan's recommendation for a collector class street. The Department of Public Works reviewed the dedication and determined that the standards for a collector class street is adequate for the future, the current and future needs for this roadway. So staff is in the opinion that the right-of-way dedication is consistent with the requirements of our subdivision regulations, and we recommend approval of the dedication as requested.
Okay, thank you. Technical questions, anyone? Jeff?
Who maintains this section of the road now?
Well, Dave, town will still maintain the roadway? Oh.
David Patek, Oshkosh Public Works. I thought his question was who maintains it now?
Oh,
And that would be the town.
okay.
Do we
But
have,
when it's dedicated, it would become, or when this, as part of the, actually, this has been annexed, I think,
Yes.
hasn't it? So now, okay, so that, I would correct that statement then. Because it was annexed, it's now our jurisdiction, the city jurisdiction.
okay, thank you.
Any other technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anybody here from the public to speak to this item today? Once, twice? Okay, back to the commission.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Holmes.
Aye.
Hintz.
Aye.
Propp.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Borsuk.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Freitag.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, moving on to item number 2, conditional use permit for the development of a brewery located at 611 Oregon Street and 213 West 7th Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, this is a request for a brewery operation occurring on two separate or involving two separate parcels. Up on the screen, you have the current land use designations showing the two subject properties. The primary property is located at the northwest corner of West 7th Avenue and Oregon Street. And the sister site located right across the street, located at 213 West 7th Avenue. Both properties are currently zoned C3 Central Commercial District, and it's located along the Oregon Street Commercial Corridor. The primary uses in the area are, again, commercial uses. There's a spattering of some mixed-use commercial residential uses along Oregon Street, and then transitioning to mixed single and two-family residential to the west, and more commercial and parking associated uses to the east. Here's a close-up aerial of the site. The first parcel at 611 Oregon Street. It's a 2.19 acre parcel, which is 100% developed as far as the building footprint. It's a brick commercial structure, two-story that fronts on, or it's a two-story structure, constructed in 1870 and has been used for various commercial uses since its construction, but it's been vacant for the last 2 years. The first floor contains 4 interconnected commercial tenant spaces, and the second floor was designed for residential units, but is currently vacant and is in need of renovation. Then after the main building was constructed, a 3,800 square foot single-story brick warehouse type style building was constructed on the back of the building along West 7th Avenue. Contains another entrance and a 12-foot overhead door facing on West 7th Avenue. The second property, located across the street, is a 0.15 acre property and contains a 2,200 square foot metal pole building on the south side of the property, and contains a overhead door and traditional door entrance on the north facade of the building. And in addition to that, it has a 22-stall legal non-conforming off-street parking area adjacent to West 7th Avenue. The petitioner is proposing to refurbish the building at 611 Oregon Street into a brewery and tap room and sales area. The brewery is considered a light industrial use, which requires the conditional use permit, which is why it's going before this body. Petitioner states they want to be part of the revitalization efforts occurring within and outside of the South Shore redevelopment area, and to become an eventual destination for visitors and focus their branding on the history of the brewing industry in Oshkosh. The actual brewing operations is proposed to take place on this back single-story addition area, with brewing operations occurring initially 3 times a month, and then increasing thereafter as their operations will continue to expand. Noise should be minimal, as the operations should be contained within the building, but the petitioner did note that brewing of beer, of course, does emit an odor, but they describe it as a sweet smell of cooked oatmeal. But to minimize the effect on the surrounding area, they are proposing to install ventilation that will duct the fumes up through the roof of the building. Two of the 4 tenant spaces along Oregon Street are proposed to be used for storage of brewing material or brewing ingredients and finished product. One of the tenant spaces is going to be used for the tap room and sales area for their product, and eventually they may lease out the 4th tenant space to an outside independent business. The petitioner do plan on eventually renovating the upper story back into functional residential uses, but In order to do that, they would have to get another conditional use permit. Mixed-use commercial, residential uses are a conditional use, so they would have to reapply and get Common Council approval to establish that use when proposed. Here's some exterior shots of the building. At this time, the petitioner is proposing no modifications to the building. At some time, as funding becomes available, they do want to do some facade improvements. Again, the site at 611 Oregon Street is 100% developed, so there's no potential for any type of expansion unless they went up, but that's probably not a likely scenario. Access for parking, I'm going to go back to the petitioner's site plan here. The C3 district does not require any off-street parking requirements for non-residential uses. However, they are planning on using the sister property at 213 West 7th Avenue for customer and employee parking. Currently, there's 22 striped stalls, but currently they're striped in a way which only allows ingress onto the property, but to egress, they would have to back out onto West 7th Avenue, and that's prohibited by code. The code requires that vehicles entering and exiting a commercial site has to do so in a forward motion, so staff is recommending that the petitioner design a new parking layout which allows for traffic to enter and exit the site in a forward motion. The petitioner has stated that they will be having deliveries three times a month and potentially increasing as production increases. Currently, there's 2-hour parking available on the north side of West 7th Avenue, and which is, I'm going to go back to this. Let's see, yeah. This is where they're proposing they have their semi-truck deliveries, which is convenient. It's right in front of their overhead door leading into their brewing area. Staff doesn't have too much concern with this proposal. Most of the businesses along Oregon Street, they're very limited where they have limited options on where deliveries can be made, so staff doesn't have any concerns with the proposed loading and unloading facility off of West 7th Avenue. As far as waste disposal and dumpster enclosures, the applicant has made arrangements with the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh to dispose of their spent grain that's going to be left over from their mashing process, which is part of the brewing process. A couple of years ago, the university opened up or developed a biodigester site, which is located off of Dempsey Trail. So staff is very supportive of this. They're utilizing the local university to dispose of their waste in a good manner or environmentally sound manner. The petitioner, I'm going to go back to the site plan. There we go. Initially, the petitioner was going to have a dumpster enclosure located within this building at 213 West 7th Avenue for their day-to-day operations and their tap room. During the submittal review process, we were informed by the Inspection Services Division that dumpsters are prohibited from being stored within an enclosed structure. Their options are very limited since the site's 100% developed, and the only space available at 213 West 7th is placing an enclosure in the front yard. Code prohibits dumpster enclosures in the front yard area, so they will have to apply for a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance to allow the dumpster enclosure in the front yard area. If approved, staff is going to recommend an additional condition that would deed restrict these two properties together to ensure the longevity that the operations at 611 will be able to continue to use the enclosure that's off-site at 213 West 7th Avenue. There we go. Signage, no formal signage plan has been submitted. They do indicate they want to utilize the existing storefront windows along Oregon Street change out the channel letters, which is kind of hard to see, but there's channel letters along mid-floor along Oregon Street, and installing a corporate logo wall signage at the corner of that'd be the east facade as well as the south facade of the building. All signage is required to meet the standards of the C3 district and be reviewed and approved by the Department of Community Development. As far as business operation, initially the petitioner states there will be 3 full-time employees, which may increase to 10 once the business becomes more established. Employees are proposed to be on site from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. in staggered shifts, especially during when they're doing the actual brewing process. The tap room and sales area is proposed to be open to the public Wednesday through Saturday from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. And then they will also be open for special events and private parties outside of the normal business hours. And they anticipate to be accommodating between 20 and 50 people per day. Staff is in the opinion that this proposal meets the criteria of a conditional use permit. We're happy to see a nice reuse of this property and should not negatively impact the surrounding area. And hopefully those provide continued momentum in the city's South Shore redevelopment area. So we are recommending approval of this conditional use permit with the 3 conditions. First one being the off-street parking area located at 213 West 7th Avenue should be redesigned to allow for vehicles entering and exiting the site in a forward motion as approved by the Department of Community Development. Second condition, the proposed site must have some type of dumpster enclosure, which is going to require a variance approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals for placement in the front yard of 213 West 7th Avenue. And then third condition, if the Board of Zoning Appeals approves the variance, the 2 subject properties shall be deed restricted together to allow for continued legal access of the dumpster enclosure. So.
All right, thank you, sir. Technical questions to start with.
Ed or me?
Okay. I can turn this around if you forgot my name, John.
That was in the way.
I understand that pink shirt can have a lot of glare. Number 3, you're talking about the deed restriction.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying, just, I guess, curious, are we talking about a deed restriction saying that the 2 properties cannot be conveyed separately?
Correct.
Or that seems a little, I mean, like you're taking a bulldozer when you need a hammer. I mean, I would require some legal access to the dumpsters from one to the other, but it seems like a little bit of overkill, I guess.
That may be an option. Dave, do you think they could do a easement?
I mean, just that's a deed restriction, whatever it may be, but some sort of continuing legal access through there. But
that's what we were getting at.
Yeah, I thought that's the case, but to deed restrict that one can't be conveyed separately without the other seems like a little bit more than might be necessary.
Right, and the petitioner may be able to answer, they might be deed restricted already, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's our understanding, because of the residential locations above, that we need the parking in order to have those as residential for whoever lives there to park. So, in talking to the realtor, we're pretty sure that it is actually deed restricted right now.
That the parcels can't be separated?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They actually would have been able to sell the parking lot already.
Gotcha.
So initially, we're working on getting
Okay.
that document, but we're just still working on getting the
Sure.
offer finished. And
Okay.
then we'll go forward with getting that deed restriction. I'm pretty sure.
If you guys just hold until we're done, you'll have
No,
your
that-
chance. We'll have you up there in front of the microphones, the whole thing. Camera will be right on you.
Draw my comment.
Anything else? Jeff, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. First, 7th Street, is it capable of handling semi-truck traffic down that street? You guys said that you didn't have any issue with it, and you're going into residential. I mean, if you're having semi-truck, wondering if it was capable of handling.
Yep, the semis are capable of utilizing West 7th, and the way that the code is written, that they have to use the shortest distance possible to get to the drop-off point. We felt 7th was a much better option than Oregon. Oregon has parking. A lot of the uses on Oregon would utilize the frontage of Oregon Street for drop-off deliveries, but West 7th is much less traveled and would be a better option, so.
Then on the dumpster enclosure, how come we didn't have the condition that would require screening of that enclosure?
Yeah, the dumpster would be a minimum of 6 feet tall, is it? So
Yeah,
it would be entirely enclosed,
Right, it's required to be, a dumpster enclosure is required to be enclosed by code,
screened on all sides.
so it wouldn't need to be a condition.
And then on the signage, I know we've talked about this before, because it didn't say what kind of signage would it have. Does C3 allow illuminated signs?
Yes.
Internally, yes, but
there
they're
any-
limited to,
Is there any concern about illumination? Because, again, it's abutting up to a residential neighborhood. I know they're actually back behind it, per se, and I think there's signages on the front and on the side, is on the north side and the east side? Is that correct?
well, the
East and the south side.
the principal entrance is going to be along Oregon Street, so I don't think we'd have too much of a concern.
Yeah, but they got a signage going on the south side.
I think that's just for their logo placement. They didn't mention if it was going to be illuminated or not. I was imagining,
Yeah, that's what I was questioning.
Additionally, it's just to answer off the cuff right now, the lighting on that side, even if it was a lit sign, which code would allow, you're a good 300 feet before you get to any residential, and you have the major street lighting of Oregon and the other businesses in Oregon, so we
All
didn't
right.
feel it would be anything larger than any other business that could go in there.
I have a question. The 7th Street portion is rather odd. Is what's there now, I mean, if that were, is that kosher? I mean, is that, it's like a big storage area, it's well off the road.
It's legal non-conforming.
Okay, that's the word.
It is non-conforming to code, but it is legal to be there and maintained and continue to be operated. If it were ever to fall down or something, or they were to remove it, anything that new to go up there would have to be code compliant. There's much bigger setbacks and everything now.
Yeah, that's,
yeah, it's paved from lot line to lot line.
right.
You know, one last question. In the area where they have the parking, is there anything that has to be done? I mean, there's a building there. Can they store anything in that building?
Sure, they could use, oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, they can store their raw materials or ingredients for the brewing process. I'm not sure if that's interest, or their interest, or...
Right.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if that building's heated,
If
or...
there's anything that has to be done under conditional use permit to allow that.
No.
Okay.
No, I anticipate, and I don't know, but anticipate it could even be used for parking for the tenant spaces when those get built out. I mean, it is basically a giant pole barn. Or pole.
Yeah, there wouldn't be anything currently that we would have to do that would allow them to have parking in that building.
Nope, that, they could just do it.
Gary?
Yes, I guess I need a clarification on the dumpster. What the applicant's going to do is have its basic business activity north of 7th Street and then move the garbage across the street to the dumpster? Is that the way?
Correct, yeah. There's absolutely no space. Let me go back to the site plan.
Okay.
No space available on 611's property for a dumpster enclosure. It's 100% built up, and you can't...
That may be interesting to see, but anyhow. Next question I have is, in the remarking of the parking area with the parking spots, it says that there's 22 parking spots now. Will the number of parking spots be reduced,
More than likely, they'll probably lose some stalls because of the redesign of it.
redesigned, and the dumpster?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and because it's grandfather, it doesn't make any difference. Well, the C districts don't need parking spots anyhow, so, okay.
Correct once they establish the residential use, then they would have to provide or prove evidence of nearby parking available, but
Yeah, the last question is, just for my own curiosity, I guess, is this a historical building? Does anybody know if it?
Historical by the date that it was built, but it does not have enough historical integrity still intact to be considered
As a historical-
contributing or historic any longer. Yeah, it's
Okay.
been too modified. But it was built in 1870. It could always be restored sometime in the future if the owners so chose to do so. And the plans are out there, the old
Bunch of
pictures are
money.
out there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Any other technical questions? Okay, seeing none. Anybody here from the audience to speak to this item today? Trish would like to step up, state your name and address, and tell us what you want us to know.
My name is Zachary Clark, and I'm just here to represent Fifth Ward Brewing Company, my partner Ian Wanger, here to answer any questions and concerns. So please feel free, if anybody has concerns, let us know and talk about that and see what kind of options are.
Thank
you.
Jeff.
You had mentioned, and the odor coming from it, that you were going to vent it out the roof. That doesn't necessarily prevent an odor; it just gets it a little higher. Is there anything to your guys' knowledge that there's any kind of scrubbers or anything that can actually reduce that? That odor?
Not really. Venting it up and with fans up and out is the best way to do that. Pretty much with the brewing process, that smell will only last probably about 4 to 6 hours. So initially venting that up and out is the best way to do that to kind of reduce the odor. It's something that hasn't been done. So the best thing to do is definitely put it up and out to keep it to a minimum. But initially, it won't be for a long period.
It is mostly steam too. There's no health concerns or anything like that with the vapor we're putting up.
Yes, Gary, and then John.
The only other not really concern suggestion is when you have the 3+ delivery truck deliveries, try to be sensitive to the community and the operation of the streets. Because it's I'm not saying you guys are not going to be that, but I would suggest being super sensitive to that.
Yeah, it's definitely something actually we had talked about a lot. We want to be part of the community and not really be any negative impact on that. And especially, I know we had mentioned too in our proposal that we're going to be self-distributing too in the beginning, so we won't actually have any delivery trucks picking up our product or dropping anything off besides ingredients and bottles and things like that.
Raw materials.
Right. So and for deliveries, we'll be using our own vehicles, which will be able to pull it into the garage structure, load up, and then pull it right out. So there won't be any. It'll be minimum, like we said, 3 times a month.
And initially trying to utilize that road that's all the way up to the sidewalk. So there's actually, if you look, there's actually about 4 lanes there. So there's definitely enough room for people to get by when there is somebody parked on that side, as well as both sides.
John.
Okay, I guess kind of touching on what a couple of my fellow commissioners asked here. So you won't be having semis delivering to you?
Unless you get semis delivering to us our ingredients.
Okay.
But initially in the brewing industry, sometimes you have semis pick up, say, kegs or pallets of bottles.
Mm-hmm.
We will not be doing that in the beginning. Initially, we'll be using our own vehicle. In the future, if we do get to that point, we might be expanding to where we look at a manufacturing place. But as of right now, with that size of establishment, it's just going to be self-distribution, just kind of delivering it ourselves, trying to get more in touch with the community, having us be the distributor, and creating good relationships with bar owners as well as restaurant owners.
And following that up, that entryway doesn't look like it's big enough for anything to back in, so they'll be parking basically parallel along 7th Avenue when they do deliveries to you, just clarifying
Yep, and
that.
then they'll have a lift gate, which
Right.
drops that down, and then we'll use a hand truck to wheel it
Well, I
in.
understand the whole process. I was
Yeah.
just making sure that about fitting in there.
Yep.
And as far as the parking goes, are you and you're talking about having residential above. So are you going to be having that area over there? I mean, it's not something that's we're holding you to right now. It's just curious. Are you going to be segmenting off residential parking? Or is that going to end up basically turning into residential and employee parking and less for customers?
I think once we, in the future, when we do renovate those, that is the plan. That yes, we'll have maybe 4 or 2 per residential location.
And utilizing the garage to have our tenants pull into, actually have an enclosed garage. That's definitely an idea of, we plan on pulling our vehicles into that small, the garage, the pull shed. That's where we will store our vehicles as we work there, and most of our employees in the beginning, as many cars as we can fit in there, we'll just keep that open
use it as a parking garage, kind of. Initially, with the amount of space that we have in that building, we do not need to utilize that as storage space. So initially trying to utilize that, so then, yeah, when we do, we are going to lose some spots in that parking lot, so we do want to keep those available to other customers.
And one last question, sorry.
Sure.
As far as your how much you're going to be producing, would you say you are planning on being on par with a place like Fratello's?
Yes.
And the reason I ask is because they seem to maintain or control their odor very well, and I know I've been through many breweries around the country. There isn't a lot of smell, and like you said, it is a very sweet smell.
Yeah.
When you do have some, but I was just saying because if people are concerned about smell, and if you're going to be on par with something like Fratello's, you never smell anything at Fratello's.
And Fratello's is on, I'll put it in this context, Fratello's is on the path to produce, I think it's about 2,000 to 3,000 barrels of beer this year. And we initially, when we first opened, we're going to only do 360. So it's very minimal. And as we, I think it would take us years to reach that point. They've obviously been open for a long time, and with the multiple restaurants that they own. And it's a good example.
Well, thanks for taking the lead on, because I was kind of leading into the comparison right there.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions from the commission for the petitioners? Do you have anything else to share with us at the moment? We may call you back up if we come up with any other scintillating questions.
Not as of right now. We're just thankful to be a part of the Oshkosh community and try and do the best we can to, help out and do what we can to be a part of the community and be a leader in the small business and south side of the development of Oshkosh, below the river.
Thank you very much. Have a seat. Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Once? Going twice? Okay, public commentary is closed. Back to the commission. Ed?
I would, just going back to the comment that I made earlier, I guess, maybe suggest that we modify the third condition, because we don't technically know what they are dealing with from a fiction standpoint. If the point of what we're trying to require is, in the event of a zoning appeal variance or a Board of Zoning Appeal variance being granted, that there's some method of allowing for dumpster use by properties, some sort of reciprocal use, just accomplish it that way at the discretion of community development or something like that.
I think you could easily just take off deed restrictions that shall be tied together to allow continued legal access to said dumpster enclosure per Department of Community Development. Sure. Leaves it open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just some method, some recorded method of making sure that.
What did you say after tied together? Because I don't think tied together is a legal term.
Well, I said tied together to allow for continued legal access to said dumpster enclosure per approval of the Department of Community
Would you want at the end of that perhaps,
well, that
if
would
not already
give a
deed
couple
restricted,
different
because they said that it may be, just because then it takes it all away right off the bat?
David?
That ties it together.
Solve it right there.
Yeah.
We centered around
Their
the tying of the property together, the properties together for the dumpster, but is there a further consideration for parking if the second floor is turned into tenant?
Sounds like they have to come back.
They do have to come back for a conditional use permit for the mixed-use residential commercial development.
Right. At that time, they could say, we're going to use our existing parking lot, and we could tie it with that conditional use. The other option that we have a lot of times with second-floor housing in the C3 districts is they'll use somebody else's parking lot or public parking as well. But they would have all those options.
You know how many residential units you're looking at?
There's 4 residential units upstairs, which each of them are 3-bedroom apartments.
About 10 or 11 stalls.
12 stalls.
Is that a public parking lot down by Evil Blades?
There is.
So I was going to say that's within a half a block.
Or they could lease it from
not
Schwab
trying to-
next door. Yeah, they have options for
But
parking.
we're not there yet.
No.
That's not what's in front of us.
Correct.
Other thoughts, comments, discussion on this item? Gary?
If they're not, I would move the approval of the recommendations with the modification that was just made.
Okay.
Number 3.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, take the roll. Call the roll.
Holmes?
Aye.
Dents,
Aye.
Crop,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Horsack,
Aye.
Cohen,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Good luck, guys. Very nice idea. Do we have any other business today to share with us or information? Nope. Seeing, something from Jeff?
Question for Darren. Some time ago, we talked about having a couple workshops. I think Dave brought up one issue that he was talking about, and we brought it up also on the workshop on landscaping, that kind of stuff. Do you know when we're anticipating having that, like in what millennium?
We were
I'll boil it down to a decade.
We were hoping to bring, on the 21st of April, bring performance standards and building design standards, part of the code, or draft code, to you guys in workshop, but a couple other things have popped up for that agenda, so I'm not sure how huge the agenda's going to turn out to be, but we're getting ready. For those two sections would be coming quickly.
I didn't necessarily want to tie it to that. I mean, we've run up against a few things occasionally, you know, whether it be how we want water retention places to look, whether we, you know, and that was one of the ones I think we wanted to specifically talk about. And I would much rather address those specific things amongst the Planning Commission so we can kind of get those ideas out that we're thinking of.
We've actually had the SAB has been looking at that issue, so they were going to prepare a report on the environmental aspect of it, because we wanted to have that ready when we move forward with it, so I'll have to check and see where that is.
And then there was landscape in general. I know Darren, you and I had traded a couple emails. I mean, everybody, when they think about landscape, they always think about bushes and trees, and well, there's something called hardscape too. I mean, we could have, and we don't necessarily have that in our code, where we could put in rock gardens or whatever it is, and that actually becomes a landscaping tool that could be acceptable if it's done properly, and actually enhance, you know, a landscaping plan. So
I've still not been able to find any ordinances that reflect that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. You know, I'm not saying that there is. I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm just saying, hey, you know, there's more than just putting up a tree and a shrub to landscaping.
And I think that the appropriate. I think the appropriate time is, you know, we can also have a discussion as part of the zoning ordinance update for the when we start to talk about landscaping. And if you can find anything, send it to us, because I haven't found any provisions.
I'd like to make a quick comment, and the other commissioners may kill me after I make this comment, but I personally would be flexible enough to have additional meetings for the zoning code update review, and not have it necessarily at one of the 2 monthly meetings of the regular scheduled plan commissions. Because I think it's important to get the zoning code updated, and it seems like it's being pushed off for a variety of reasons. And the push off may be good reasons, but I'm just saying that if the staff feels that additional meetings, and I do dislike additional meetings, but if additional meetings are necessary to progress on the updating of the zoning code, that I would be in favor of it. So that's just my comments.
Anything else, folks? Right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Way to go, Ed.
Anybody need rotary?